Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin. Thanks for tuning into our podcast, The Secret War on Cash. And if you haven't received a copy of our report, The Secret War on Cash, I strongly encourage you to do so. You can do that by contacting our office at 1-800-289-2646. You can text us, actually, that same number, 800-289-2646, or visit us online at www.swissamerica, all one word, swissamerica.com, and you'll see the phone number as well as that web address in the podcast description. So the report is free, the information is invaluable, and it will definitely be a nice read for you to get a good grip or understanding of some of the things that are taking place around us. Well, let's talk about what's happening in today's podcast. We've talked about this a lot over the last few years. Haven't much recently, but this is out of the Daily Huddle. And Bank of America abruptly freezes customer's business account, refuses to release $212,000 until this happened. And Chris Agelastos and I are going to be talking about this here today. And Chris, this is not a new story, unfortunately. I mean, sadly, you could do hours and hours, days and days, weeks and months of podcast about things like this happening.
Yep.
And in this particular instance, you've got this business owner in California, Sarah Torres, a B of A account, who she received her checks, basically her COVID checks, her employee retention credit checks. And she had been waiting for these checks, well, obviously since COVID, for several years now. And she finally got them, deposited in her account, and she desperately needed the money, and the bank froze the account. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, all too common of a thing, unfortunately, but it happens for various reasons. And, if she's kept all these employees on board during COVID, in the process of that, she's had to, it says here, tap into her child's college fund and borrow from family members just to keep the business afloat. And the IRS actually verified the legitimacy of the checks. And so I guess what I'll start off with here, Chris, is that, again, this happens for a variety of reasons. Maybe there's a fear of fraud, or the money was gained illicitly, or through some kind of illegal activity. Totally get it. But this is an established business owner. She's established a company. Verification from the IRS. The biggest thing that I have a problem with is, which it gets into in the article here, and this is what seems to be all too common the case when these situations arise. These tax-paying responsible citizens get with their bank to try and resolve these issues, and they get no feedback or no response from the bank. And to me, that's unacceptable, because if your money's sitting in there and look, the money was good, the IRS, the government said so, so it's not like it was a bad check where there was no money. So not only is it she didn't have access to her money, but the bank had their money. They're the ones who had the money to their benefit.
Yep.
And so that's where I think there's a real breakdown here, is that this keeps happening, and the responsible citizen is the one who's kind of just left out in the dark, just dangling out in the wind.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And it comes back to, how do you fight the bank, right? Especially, Bank of America, one of the largest banks out there. And, what's the average person going to do? Or in this case, the average small business owner. They even had, like you mentioned, verification from the IRS. Supposedly what had happened here is she had to change her EIN number.
That's right.
For the business, for whatever reason. And so had changed the EIN number with the IRS and with her bank account, and then deposited these checks. And that's what the bank considered suspicious activity, which is fine. Okay, let's be safe here. There's been a change in the account. Let's just verify some things. Well, even after the IRS verifies the legitimacy of the checks, Bank of America doesn't do anything. They keep her funds there frozen. She has to email them without responses, sending them mail documents, certified mail, overnighting documentation, requesting and requiring a signature upon delivery. Never gets a response at all from the bank. It's like they just ghosted her, They've got her
Good term.
$200,000, and it's like she doesn't even exist. Forget that she's even a customer. And then when she finally contacts the media, and I think this was one of those local, like, local news on your side type things, and it starts making some headlines. Now all of a sudden, Bank of America gets involved. They don't want the negative publicity, and they resolve the issue. Everything's okay. Nothing to see here, folks. Everything's fine. But again, why did it have to get escalated to that level? And I've had personal issues too with, not just the bank, but with other businesses. And it's why do you have to escalate things all the way to posting stuff on social media and getting enough word out there before a customer service representative or a manager will step in and help resolve the problem? That's what it really comes down to.
Well, and you're right. And there's zero communication, and I don't know, because there's no communication. Let's just spitball here and say, I don't know, maybe it's because Bank of America's legal counsel, their attorneys, have told them, don't say anything because we don't want to, put ourselves in harm's way or at risk in something that could be used against us. I get it. But by the same token, like, this is one of your customers who right. apparently is like, we're talking, $200,000 worth of these ERC checks. I mean, it sounds like a pretty significant business, 20 people. I mean, we're probably talking a multi-million-dollar corporation here, a small business, and they're not getting answers. And the reason I say that is because when I read this and read it, and as we're talking about it, it really kind of makes you wonder, like, is this happening to people on a lesser scale? So maybe it's a few $100 here, or $1,000 or $2,000 there, and not a business owner who maybe has a little bit more, is a little more business savvy, a little bit more business acumen, just an average person who really, because I think about, like, like my grandmother when she was alive, like, and she wouldn't know what to do in this situation, and she would just forget about it. I mean, I can't imagine this is something that is only happening. These are the high profile ones because the news gets involved, but it speaks to, like, the problem that we have in our system as a whole. And what's crazy, again, we've talked about this, we look at these situations where at least she had a number to call. She had people that she could try and get in contact with. They're trying to move us into a digital currency age, cryptos and CBDCs and what have you, where you want to talk about lack of customer service or lack of getting a hold of someone. This is like nothing compared to what that'll be like if there's problems. And that's already come up. And we'll look at in our next article here. This is just, again, speaks to the fragility and the vulnerability that we have in our financial system today. So in this one out of the Daily Huddle, 172,000 Americans affected as a data breach hits $1 billion financial firm. Their names, social security numbers, debit card records, and more potentially stolen. Now that's crazy. Now here's the thing. Their system, something triggered it. This is Connex is the bank. They say here, it experienced unusual activity in its cyber environment. I don't even know what exactly that means. On June 3rd, 2025. And they immediately started an investigation using independent experts to assist. Okay. Now, on July 27th, so what is that? Almost basically two months later?
Basically, yeah.
Almost 2 months later, they identified certain individuals whose personal information may have been involved in the incident. Now, their definition of certain individuals, going back to the title of the article, 172,000 Americans in this one institution.
Yeah,
institution.
Not 4 people. Yeah.
Not 4 people. My definition of certain individuals and theirs, I can assure you, is different, because that seems like a lot of people. That's 2 good-sized football stadiums full of people whose information was compromised. Okay.
Yep. So,
and here's the thing. They addressed it. I'll read here. The credit unions said it immediately sent letters of notification to the affected members, And they highlight there's no reason to believe the incident involved unauthorized access to customer accounts or funds. Okay, to me, that's reassuring if that's true. But
Right.
when I read that, Chris, and I'm going to let you talk here in a second, but actually there's two things I also want to say. But why would somebody access that information and then not utilize it or take advantage of it? Because that's the part where they're like, we don't believe that they're using it to access your funds or whatever else. So what are they using it for? And there are other things, don't get me wrong, but that's kind of the mother lode when you can access all these accounts of 172,000 people. I mean, at $1 an account, it's $172,000. So with that being said, what Connex is offering, and this is fantastic, I'm not being critical of this, the affected customers, again, 172,000, 12 months of free credit and identity protection services through Cyber Scout. Now, here's the thing. Let's just say, I'm not going to say you did it, Chris, but let's just say whoever it is that stole that information, and they're reading this same article, and they know for 12 months they can't access that because they've got free identity protection. Wouldn't you just wait 12 months and then when the 12 months is over, then go access the stuff? I mean, all right, so you talk. Tell me your thoughts on this.
Well, that's I was reading this and I thought, okay, so it took them 2 months before they even notified anybody, or essentially, let's call it maybe seven weeks. But so the bad guys here could have been using that data for the first couple of months. And then now maybe if they pause it for 12 or 14 or 16 months to be safe, once that data is out there, right? Everybody's not changing their social security numbers. Those numbers are still going to be good a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. So the data is already out there. When they say that, it doesn't appear that there's been unauthorized access to accounts or funds. Yeah, I think what they're specifically saying is, well, the hacker didn't, log into your account and take any money out of your checking account, because this was a credit union. So, great, that I'm happy that hasn't happened, but that doesn't mean that they can't take my social security number and go open new accounts or go borrow, go take out loans, go get a credit card, things of this nature, and cause other trouble. With that kind of information, I mean, they can really get into any of your important accounts, not just financial, but also medical. They can use that information along with title searches on your home and cause problems for you there. So it's just we're taught to keep this information private for a reason. And when a large institution like this, doesn't protect it properly and then doesn't tell you about it for a couple of months, it makes you wonder, how often does this happen that we don't even hear about it?
Right. Well, and I'm sure it's a lot. There are a couple other things like with this article that I have questions on. It wasn't quite clear to me. They don't talk about Connex in terms of how they said 170. Okay, the title of the article says 172,000 Americans. Now, that I guess could mean that's not 172,000 Connex customers. I mean, is it something where they have, like, for instance, if you're sending your some form of payment to, let's say, a landscaper through the bank, is it when they're saying 172,000 Americans, is it not just you, but that landscaper, some of their information was compromised? Because it doesn't talk about, like, how many customers does Connex Bank actually have? 172,000 would seem like a lot for, I mean, even though it's $1 billion credit union, that's 172,000 seems like a ton of customers. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it could affect anybody that payments were maybe sent to, maybe bill pay, or maybe, something similar like Zelle, where you can log into your bank account and electronically send money to workers for services and things like that. So, yeah, who knows, really? I mean, all we know is the information that they give us, and what they give us is probably based off the advice of their lawyer to kind of minimize their risk and how bad things look for them.
100%. And that's the thing. Like their statement that doesn't look like anybody's account was accessed. Well, if it is one of those extension accounts, your landscaper, You know, how would they wouldn't know that if your landscaper had that compromised. And
Right.
I don't think your landscaper is going to get the 12 months of free credit monitoring either. So
no, probably not.
And it goes back to what I said a moment ago, where look, if I were a thief who was taking this kind of information, I can't fathom a thief who would be doing so and not wanting to use that information for their own benefit or some kind of financial gain. So that's where I just think there's a lot of holes in this story. And like most of these stories that come out, there's always holes in them and you never know what's going on, but it just speaks to the perpetual holes that are in our system, especially when you are heavily relying on, you know, the electronic and the digital age, which we're all stuck in. But that's where, you know, I wouldn't be necessarily, for those of you tuning in, running face first into this digital age. I would be diversifying, keeping statements, doing things a little bit old school, at least wise, until they get things ironed out here. So, well, thank you, Chris. And for those of you tuning in, thanks for doing so. If you want to learn more about the secret war on cash or find out about what you can do to protect against digital vulnerabilities by way of maybe gold or silver, you can do so. Call for some free information at Swiss America, 1-800-289-2646, or text us 1-800-289-2646. You can text the very same number you can call, or visit us online at SwissAmerica.com. You'll see the number as well as the web address in the title of our show here. And thanks for tuning in. And if you're not subscribed, please do so, as we'd love to talk to you more in the future. Chris, thanks for the information. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Yep. Take care.